Hi, my name is Thomas Deane. I'm a Media Relations Officer in Trinity College Dublin, and my interests in social media are kind of a mixture of personal and professional. So professionally, I would use social media with my job to kind of help promote some of the amazing research going on in Trinity. And then personally, I'm particularly interested in sport, and I find social media brilliant for following the latest updates in sport, basically.
Hello Thomas, welcome to the Heliosphere.
Kevin, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. So we had a little chat before the cameras went on and basically talked a bit about journalism in general and how journalism changed through social media. And one of the topics that came up was the whole debate about fake news and how now it is so easy to create news and to also create news that is deceiving or in some way false. What's your thinking on that, or what have you seen?
Yeah, it's a problem. So the way I like to use social media, Twitter particularly, I find really good for sports news. So my big passion is horse racing really, but other sports too. So soccer, tennis, even ice hockey, things like that I follow. And I find social media kind of instantly, that's where you go to get the news. So say there's a cup final coming up or something in the world of soccer, you kind of get the team news there quicker than you do anywhere else. So people are constantly looking for that information. But it's very hard to tell when somebody posts, a nicely done up graphic showing the 11 players from, say, Arsenal or Manchester United who are going out to play football, and you've no idea whether it's actually true or not. It's quite tough.
Yeah.
So I've no idea really how you kind of get to find out what is true and what isn't, basically.
But do you think that's because do you think social media has kind of somehow accelerated that? Because fake news has been always around, tabloids has been always around, and this whole idea that even in war situations where rumors would be spun, so that I'm sure in ancient history there's like all kind of stories of battles being decided because somebody believed the rumor of something that spread. So what's the new thing about it? Like, why is it? Why is it such a big deal?
I agree. Like, I think kind of overall, it's probably not a new thing, fake news. Yeah. But I think social media, it just gives kind of anyone and everyone really with access to a mobile phone or a computer and a Wi-Fi signal, the ability to start commenting, and that's something that you obviously never had before. So you'd still get your fake news articles and whatever, but it's now very easy for Bob down the road to just pick up his phone because he's bored and say, I've just seen
I've met Bob
crazy.
A few times.
Oh yeah, we've all met Bob a few times.
Talking about Bob, like let's just call Bob a citizen journalist.
Okay, yeah.
So Bob would be the example of a citizen journalist, which is this new evolving space where suddenly Bob and Joe Blogg and all his friends can basically just do the job of a journalist and basically, which is interesting with the sport as well that you mentioned, but can be much quicker than journalists. Like breaking news, the concept of breaking news now comes out of the Twitter sphere or from a Bob, citizen journalist. How's that changed? Maybe also your job generally in the press
for sure.
Space. Is that a competition? Is that good? Is that?
Yeah, I mean it is, to be honest. It's I think it's a good thing as long as you have an element of control and again really whether you can trust something or not as being real. But I like the idea that citizen science can or citizen journalism can work in that way, and I'd say you certainly get more stories, and you also get probably the opinions of people that would never otherwise be quoted through in media pieces. I think that's a really good thing, a really strong thing that it can give you. And again, the issue is just people can take very convincing looking footage, or particularly in the world of sport, if I go back to kind of what I primarily use it for personally, you can see historical things, maybe something a year ago which was officially correct can be posted out via Twitter, and then people are like, oh my goodness, it's happening again. I've seen that happen a number of times. So that's the challenge. But from professionally, like in my job in Trinity, I've noticed a big difference. I've been here for 6 years now, doing the same kind of work, working in media relations. And in that time, there's a huge shift towards social media. It's becoming more and more important in terms of getting news out quickly. And it is kind of like a race. Like it's always been a race in media to be the first with a story. And now the days are gone where you can issue a press release and think, okay, we'll wait 24, 48 hours and then we can make a big splash in the papers or whatever. Now, as soon as you issue it, if it's any good, it's likely to be on social media. So you kind of have to follow, or you even have to lead via social media.
It's just got quicker as well. You mentioned the word race, everything's gone fast. And on that keyword race, you mentioned that you have a keen interest in that space, basically horse racing. And what fascinates me in that space is, again, in social media, is the speed of a race and how different types of social media can be used for that. So if we take one platform which is called Snapchat, which lives on basically 10-second clips that then disappear, it's interesting how that seems to be used a lot, because you basically just have that snap moment of the race, and when the race is over, nobody really cares anymore. Maybe if you want to see historical facts and so forth, but how do you see that space has been affected by social media?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think even so, Snapchat definitely 10 seconds for sure. That's very true. And for probably realistically, probably 95 to 99% of people that are interested in racing, you're right, they don't really care beyond the race itself. They probably had a bet on and they want to know whether they've won the money or not. And then watch that 10 seconds. Great, I know the outcome. Boom, done. And then also on Twitter, you see a lot of videos that might be kind of, I don't know, between say 10 seconds and 2 minutes in length. And I suppose really in the last 5-6 years, I've noticed a big difference where 5-6 years ago, you might be lucky to find some genuinely interesting information on Twitter about racing. You might be a trainer saying, oh, my big hope for the year, he's just had an injury setback, he's going to be delayed for a few months, so you won't see him for a few months. Kind of thing.
And that would be like an interview in a blog or something.
Yeah, it could be, or it could even, even then it could just be a picture of the horse. It might even just be an image, it might not actually be a video. But now you're getting like real top-end players, like the real kind of biggest trainers in the world who are the kingpins in their industry, and you get this amazing footage. You see them on the gallops in the morning, you might get an interview with the jockey before
That's
the race.
all before the race.
Before the race, after the race sometimes.
Would you start looking at it and saying, is the horse tired? Or?
Yeah, it's useful for that, for sure, and particularly like if you're interested in the kind of the betting side of it, which a lot of people are, what you find is there are these big races throughout the year. You kind of know when they're coming up because they're annual events, and betting will be sometimes months, even a year beforehand, sometimes for the really big races. And any bit of information you have about a horse that may or may not be going there is useful from a betting point of view. So,
what's the name of before the race the horses are paraded?
Oh, there's the kind of the paddock or the parade ring.
Yeah. Because I brought my mother once to a horse race, and she learned like reading horses a bit from her father, from my Irish grandfather, and he went a lot to the races, and my mother, every time I bring her to the race, I just go, how does she do? She always wins something because she has some kind of eye for how active. But I'm just wondering, is that parading maybe changing a bit? Because I wouldn't be bothered, and I thought it was great fun to go to that circle and see the horses and the jockey kind of. But now I'm thinking, if social media is so omnipresent,
for sure,
and I'm sitting there having my beer and I'm going like, why would I bother going down there? I just watch it here or see the.
Definitely that's true for spectators, just casual fans who would go and have a nice day out and enjoy it. And it's also true for professionals, so people who are gambling huge amounts of money on the year. It is their sole source of income. They're professionals in what they do. There's actually a very, very good, really recent example to illustrate what I'm about to say. There's a sprinter, a racehorse called Batash, who is one of the fastest racehorses we've seen in 20 years. But he is a little bit kind of not quite all there. He's a little bit fractious sometimes. He will easily get excited in the paddock. And there have been a number of occasions when basically he's got excited for whatever reason, and by the time he's got to the start, he's basically lost the race before it's even begun because his head is gone. And
everybody put his betting on him because
people,
they think he's like on fire.
You're like, oh God, do we back him, do we not? But 10 years ago, if you hadn't been the racegoer who'd gone along to watch that, you would have seen that in the parade ring. You'd be like, oh, maybe I won't bet on him because he looks like he's not very relaxed. Nowadays, you have people on Twitter and on Snapchat, so you can be sitting at home on your couch watching a movie, and then you can be scrolling through Twitter and you see that. So from a professional's point of view, you don't even necessarily need to go racing now. You kind of get that live footage and you can see it and think,
and there's also, it's not directly social media, but one could argue that social media leads potentially to different betting platforms. I mean, there's so many online betting platforms now, and they're highly controversial, obviously, because of the danger of becoming addicted and having too easy access to betting. But there must be like a lot going on in that space as well, where betting platforms have like online, full-on social media, real-time tweets coming in and so forth.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd say that's probably a real problem that the industry or society has in general. As you said, a lot of people do have serious addiction problems, and totally, yeah. I mean, if you're watching, I don't know if a lot of people just follow Paddy Power on Twitter. It's very funny if you have kind of an easygoing sense of humour, because they're not very politically correct generally. When you're watching the sports, they are actually quite witty. But over the course of a 90-minute soccer match, for example, they probably tweet, I don't know, 12, 13 times based on what's happening in the game, and those tweets alone get hundreds, if not thousands, of retweets and likes. So they're obviously having a huge influence.
Interesting. And how would you see basically that space joining up more? Like I'm just wondering, like, where will it go? Like, will we see? Basically, we're using GoPros here for this conversation, and they're like nice little cameras. And are we going to see like GoPros on the head of the horse, like full on 24-hour coverage, live, quantify self? Like this whole movement in social media as well called quantify self, where you collect all the data about yourself, pulse data, and you make it public all the time. People walking around with cameras for years, going to the toilet, having showers, the whole thing. Are we getting like like soccer players, racehorses, and they're all like constantly public?
See it happening. It wouldn't surprise me. It might, you kind of joke about, would you see a GoPro on a horse's head? You actually do quite regularly now have little, I guess they are little GoPros or something similar that they put in the jockeys' helmets. And they might have, say, 2 in a race with 10 runners, and then you get the perspective. They usually pick a horse that's likely to be a front runner and one who is usually at the rear of the field, and it gives you that whole kind of sensation of what's going on.
Yeah, but where would we go if we then take the biometric data? And let's say that goes in, and then we can see that the pulse of the horse is dropping a bit in the middle of the race. And the live betting goes again.
And that will probably happen. Hong Kong actually, using horse racing again as an example. Hong Kong is kind of 20, maybe 30 years ahead of the rest of the world in terms of using biometric data and just making data available on racing. And it's incredible the amount of data they have. And I'd say in 20 years that's perfectly possible that you would get that level of detail, so that if you're a mathematics whiz and you have the time to put together a model, you could be doing that. Exactly, and you have a bot that can place your bets.
Stock trading is heavily affected by social media.
Absolutely.
You have so many bots now that just get the sentiment from the social media platforms. And so if they do it then with the horses, they do it with the jockeys. That's mad.
No, it's crazy. But I really think that will happen. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Give it time. Ireland and the UK were usually a little bit behind the rest of the world when it comes to those things.
What is the rest of the world in this space? More America?
I suppose, America, Australia, Hong Kong, Japan.
Even though you would think that Ireland and UK have the love for the racing.
And in terms of quality, it'd be, the best in the world, or very much, on a par or punching above its weight. But, in terms of making data available, it's still a little bit slower than the rest of the world.
And maybe just to kind of give it a bit of a futuristic focus, like what do you think where social media, maybe both in your job, if you can, in your job in the press function, and maybe also in the sport, like where do you see it going, or maybe even where would you like to see it going? And you can be as science fiction-y as you want.
It's a good question. I mean, I definitely see, certainly professionally speaking, I see a real transition in both the need and kind of the appetite within the research community to actually be better communicators and to be kind of their own journalists in a sense. It's much more common now that you'd see someone like yourself who would happily have a camera put in front of them to kind of advertise their research and help get the message out about what they're doing. And I'm pretty sure that will become more and more commonplace as things go forward. So you may well end up in the future with some kind of news portal, it'd be online, obviously digital in some way, where you almost have kind of a trusted panel of people, whether that's researchers or politicians, dare I say it, or someone who you think you can trust, basically, will just be communicating directly via social media.
And two-way communication.
And two-way, absolutely. I think that's the key thing. Like, it sounds a bit cheesy, but a lot of the time with communication, and even professionally, people kind of neglect the social side of social media and realize that it's actually about engagement, and it's 2, 3, 4-way conversation, not just a means for disseminating stuff, which is what the media traditionally has been, I guess, in my profession. And then I suppose, like, my own personal interests, I'm very fascinated by social media, and I like the way it's kind of moving. I like the way that you have the ability to see what's going on in someone's back garden in Japan if they want to put a video up. On, that sort of stuff. So I hope that will continue evolving. And for me, the
more
big
Japanese
thing,
gardens.
Yeah, more Japanese gardens. Love Japanese gardens. They're good for your mental health. They're kind of nice and soothing. But generally, I think I would just like to see that trust element. A way, if you had a social media platform where you knew the people kind of communicating news had built up some kind of trust score potentially, just so you felt a little bit more confident in accepting that what you're seeing is real and not coloured through some kind of lens. That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, nice. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Cheers. Thanks, Phil.